Hey everyone, Charles here. And first of all, thank you for stopping by my podcast. If this show inspires you, makes you think, or gives you that courage to jump into action, please help by donating to this show. Click the link in the description and donate. Your donation helps us with production and finding great guests moving forward. Thank you and enjoy.
Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Jump fans, get up, stretch out. My next guest shows you that there is no quit. There's no saying I can't do nothing. There's nothing you can't do anything. There's nothing you can't accomplish to be great. My next guest will show you that she does not stop. She does not stop for nothing until she accomplishes her goals. Ladies and gentlemen, our next show is all about unstoppable Tracy, what she's gone through, how she achieved it to be one of the top speakers around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Unstoppable Tracy. Yes, hello. It is another show. It is Jump, and I am so excited to introduce my next guest. When I tell you about a spirit like no other, I don't think this person has one bad day. Not one bad day. She's always happy. She's always just having fun. Like even when you call her, it's like her voice just says hello, and it's what I love about it because it makes everybody smile. She has that one connection that she always does. So I'm not even going to introduce her. I'm going to just pretend I'm calling her so you guys can hear it. Okay. Hello, caller. Are you there?
Hello, Unstoppable Tracy here.
How you doing?
I am wonderful. Charles, it's so nice to connect with you.
It is, and it's a pleasure for myself because as I was telling you during the break, I actually went to a JT Fox seminar, and he was speaking about you, and we saw a little presentation, and he was speaking very highly of you and what you've accomplished. And I was honored that I saw you on LinkedIn that you wanted to meet up, and I was so excited I had to get you on my show right away.
See how the stars align, and and we make it mean stars align, but it's actually that you're the kind of person that jumped. You jumped at the opportunity to connect, and I was the kind of person that jumped at, oh, he's connected to my world with JT Fox. I should connect with him, and so we make it happen.
That's right. Now, if anybody doesn't know who you are, can you give them a little backstory about yourself?
I sure can. What I love to start with is that I have sailed World Cup regattas with male-dominated, able-bodied, big, strong Viking men, 27 men and 4 women, and I've climbed the Himalayas, and I've captained tall ships, and I skied double black diamond, and I helped Air Canada bust into through the strike with Canadian Airlines and with their pilots and the merger, and I helped Uber break into Canada and help Shoppers Drug Mart through pharmaceutical reform, and then I'm a bit of a humanitarian doing work in Uganda and Nepal and Mexico. So on top of adventurer, athlete, and entrepreneur, obstacle buster, I also happen to be, which is probably what you thought I would open with, a 4-way amputee. And so both legs above knees, and missing my left arm above elbow, and I'm missing my right hand. Okay. And so all 4 limbs are affected.
Okay, now how did that happen? Were you born with it or was it an accident?
I was born with it. Oh. No exciting train accident, I'm afraid. But I was born this way, and they don't know why. It's just a fluke. I'm too young for the thalidomide drug. Okay. And so it's just a fluke. Everyone else in my family have their arms and their legs, aunts, uncles, nieces, great-great-great-great-grandparents, all the cousins since. I'm the only one But I'm also the only one that ever got her MBA and went on to fly airplanes and jump out of airplanes and scuba dive and all those other things I've already talked about. And so I'm exactly how I'm meant to be.
and that's what it is. That spirit that you have is amazing. Now, for me, I just love that you don't make anything stop you. And that's why you got that title, Unstoppable Tracy, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, it must have been a struggle growing up. What did you do every day to keep this mindset?
I think I was blessed to be born this way because it taught me super early this mindset as a byproduct, right? I'm just a kid on a front lawn, not a hero, just a kid that wants to play with other kids, right? Like all kids want to play with other kids. Even introverted, shy kids want to play with one special friend, right? Everybody wants to just play. And so I was on the lawn and the other kids were on the lawn beside me. And that meant I had to do whatever it took to get over there, right? The group of kids usually stay together and the individual has to join the gang. So I remember like rolling down the lawn and there was a skateboard at the bottom and I jumped on somebody's skateboard. It wasn't mine. And then I skateboarded over to their lawn and then I rolled up their lawn and said hi, right? And it was just, you have to do whatever it takes to go for it, right? And I wasn't being a hero, just a kid that wants to play. And there were times where it was tough. Like I remember the first day of school and I'm approaching school and it's before Terry Fox and Rick Hansen has traveled around the world and changed policy. So there's no personal support workers in the classroom, no educational assistants. And the school administrator says, "I'm sorry, Tracy can't go to this school." And my heart just went, yeah. Right? But what was really great and what we can all do, like we're all told no, right? Somebody, you want to fund your business or you want to sing on a stage or you want to start your own Zoom radio station. You know, we're all told no for whatever reasons, money, business, our teenagers, you know, whoever you're speaking to. And what my mom taught me that day was she spoke to the principals listening. And she didn't try to convince them she can do it, she's okay. She just counter-offered. And she realized he was worried about, and grantedly so, 30 kids, one teacher, all by herself. How is she going to manage a 4-way amputee? And so who's going to tie my shoelaces? Who's going to help me in the bathroom? She's got 30 other kids. And so what my mom did is she counter-offered. And she said, "How about you try Tracy just for 1 week?" And she said, "If it doesn't work out, no problem, totally no problem. Then we'll try another school." And so she was speaking to his listening. She could tell that, and he could tell that she meant it. She meant that there was no way that I was going to give her a hard time, right? My mom wasn't going to give her a hard time if it wasn't going to work out. So the principal was okay with me trying it. So the principal ran outside at recess to see if I made it outside, because if I did, it meant I could stay at that school. And I never made it outside.
Oh man.
So the principal runs back inside. You know, this poor principal now, right now he's fallen in love with me like you, and he wants me to stay. So he runs to ask the teacher what happened. He's like, "Couldn't she tie her shoelaces?" And the teacher's all confused, and the teacher's like, "No, she was the first one to tie her shoelaces." And he couldn't figure it out, right? I've got no hands. How did I tie my shoelaces?
Right.
And he said, "She was the first one? Well, what happened?" And the teacher said, "Well, none of the kids could tie their shoelaces." And for somehow Tracy had it in her bonnet that everybody's supposed to be included. So by the time she tied 30 shoelaces, the recess bell was over.
So hold on. You did yours and you stopped to help all the other kids.
That's it. And because my mom told me, right? Everybody included. And she said, nobody left behind. And she meant me, right? She meant, Tracy, don't leave yourself behind. But I took that to mean don't leave anybody behind. And it was perfect. And I didn't go in there planning on being the shoelace leader, right? I just wanted to make sure I knew if we were all outside together, I got to stay at that school. And so it's funny though, like, why is it the only kid with no hands was the only kid required to be able to tie her shoelaces to be there?
Yep.
And so sometimes people tell us no, and it's that big bad word. It sounds realistic.
Well,
right? It makes sense. There's no funding, or I'm a female, or I don't have my MBA, or I'm not smart enough, I'm not tall enough, I don't sing well enough. We all have these stories, but there's no realistic. Just put a big red X through the word realistic in your mind visually every time I hear that word. And then I learned that day that no, N-O, just means they don't know, K-N-O-W.
Right, and that's what I was going to ask you, because you've been all over. Like, if you go to Tracy, Unstoppable Tracy's YouTube videos thing, she's got videos after videos, and you were on BT.
Yeah.
And you talked about no, but your no is not N-O, your no is K-N-O-W.
Yeah, and how lucky that at 5 years old, that was imprinted. Every time I hear no, I'm like, oh, okay, they don't know, and I'm not speaking to their listening. You know, every time. So when I wanted to pursue my Paralympic dream, I jumped in a car. I spent like 5 days driving down there to find this gold Olympian. I thought, if I'm going to beat the Paralympians, I got to surround myself with gold Olympians, you know? And who you surround yourself with is who you become, right? You and me, we surround ourselves with each other, and you surrounded yourself with JT Fox, and who you surround yourself with, go-getters that make it work, is who you become. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to surround myself with gold Olympians, and I'm going to become an Olympian. I'm going to become a Paralympian, right? So I get down there, 5 days in the car, I jump out of the car, and he's like washing a boat at 5:30 in the morning. And I'm like, hi, I'm Tracy from Toronto. I'm so excited. I'm going to be a Canadian Paralympian, you know, like super excited. And I think I expected him to like pick me up and swirl me around and maybe even, you know, propose marriage or something, right? Like real full on, extreme, immediate. And he just kept washing his boat, right? And he just like, oh, that's nice. You know, like he was like, oh my gosh, right? It was not what and then I realized, okay, I'm not speaking to his listening, right? My mom was speaking to the principal's listening. He doesn't want to be stuck with me. I'm not speaking to Magnus Ligidal, gold Olympian's listening. His listening right now is washing a boat. So I picked up a sponge and I started washing the boat. And I ended up washing that boat and others for 3 months before I got to sail with Magnus Ligidal. 3 months. But I figured it out. He just didn't know K-N-O-W. And it took me a little time, but I got there.
Okay, so I want my listeners to listen and understand this correctly, what she's saying. Sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is sometimes when you go into business, you be at, you know, your proposal or something, and you say something to somebody, and not necessarily when they say no, it's no. They say no because they quite not understand where you're coming from, and you're not on that level yet.
And you're not speaking to their listening, right? You're speaking to our own. We, you know, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits, Highly Effective People, he says, seek first to understand before being understood. And so obviously we need to speak to their listening. And as a 4-way amputee, people look at me and they are inspired by me. I just have to be drinking a cup of tea and people will be like, wow, isn't she amazing, right? They don't know that I climbed the Himalayas of Nepal without my legs, right? I left my legs in Kathmandu. And they're just amazed I'm drinking tea, right? They don't know that I, you know, supported Air Canada and Canadian Airlines with a merger. They don't know that I speak at Home Depot and Loblaws and Meridian and ING Online Bank in Amsterdam last week, right? Like they don't know. They just think I'm drinking a cup of tea and I'm amazing because I've got a dress on and they can see that both my legs are artificial above me. And it's a shame. So the first reaction with people is they're amazed and awed and inspired by me, but they always say no. Like one of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur is because it's so tough to get hired.
Okay.
Right? And people, you're amazing, but how are you? And they don't say out loud, how are you going to type, or how are you going to flip chart paper, or how are you going to, so that I can let them know how. They just don't know.
But they're thinking about it, and they're wondering what's going to happen. If we take her on, is it going to be a liability? Is she going to do great? Do we want to take this chance? But not saying, like your mom, give her a week, give her a try. Let's see what she knows.
And that works in recreation and sport and in a children's world. And in the adult world, you really got to go at it. And my first job was State Farm Insurance. I was 16, and I had applied at McDonald's and Tim Hortons and all of the places that Cineplex Odeon, like all the places that all my friends, able-bodied teenager friends, had applied to. And I got all these no's, and for some reason, something came out at the State Farm Insurance about skiing. I think he had some ski thing on his desk or in the corner, and I talked about it. I'm like, where do you ski? I ski at the Peaks. And that was, I got hired at State Farm Insurance to answer telephones because I could ski. And so it just sort of let him realize, okay, right, if she can ski, she can answer my telephone. But I could have done the job at any of those places, but I didn't realize, so I think that's where I got my adventure kick, was like, okay, if I can prove to them I can climb mountains and fly airplanes and jump out of airplanes and be an advanced scuba diver, if I can prove these things. I did go to Paralympic trials, but in order to get there, I also went to World Cup regattas, like in Australia, sailing against able-bodied men, 27 men and 3 women. And I was the only one with no arms and no legs in that World Cup regatta. And all I wanted to do was get to the Paralympic trials, right? And so, but you've got to, who you surround yourself with is who you become. And even my own community of people with disabilities doubted my ability to get to the Paralympic trials.
At the end of the day, okay, even you got people, that's the main thing right now. My show's called Jump because I want to show people that it's always going to be difficult and you're going to have to take a chance.
Yeah.
You have people that are doubting you.
Yeah.
How do you keep going when you have doubters?
Well, so what's great is that I've had doubters all my life, and every doubt, and then I get to see a breakthrough. So I have the advantage of seeing, you stick with it, it works. They talk about, Walt Disney, he went bankrupt 9 times, right? He did it one more time. Failure and success, the only difference is somebody tried one more time, and so they were successful. And I know, I think to something more of us experience. Not everyone experiences a 4-way amputee, but when I went away to school for the first time, it was like first time leaving home. It was scary. It was like, oh my gosh, I remember bawling my eyes out, but I wasn't not going to school, not going to residence. And it was awesome. I loved residence and being at school. And then when I went away again for my Bachelor of Education, a second degree, for some reason I was scared all over again. And it was same when I went to Jamaica, when I went to Nepal. Every time I went away on a trip or did an adventure or went away to different schools, each time was really rough. But the second time was a little less, and the third and the fourth. And now, I just went off to Europe, 11 countries in 22 days, 33 cities. And I wasn't crying. But it was much bigger and much harder than going to one country that was completely planned and I knew exactly where I was going to be every single day in one place. It was a much bigger adventure, but now I know you just jump, you just go for it, and you're going to figure it out.
You said something that I really love. You said every time that you go and you fail, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
And people fail to understand that a failure is something that you grow on. Because if you didn't fail, you didn't learn anything. So if you could just tell my Jump listeners, explain that give me an example of one time you tried something and failed, and then what you learned from it.
So, the first time I was going to go skiing, right? People who are paralyzed or missing their legs, they're often sit skiers. And with sit skiers, with their hands, they use outriggers, which are like crutches with little mini skis at the end of the outrigger. But because I don't have a left arm and I'm missing a right hand, I don't have hands, outriggers weren't working for me. We even tried just duct taping them to the little bit of arm that I had, but it wasn't enough control. And we didn't figure out how I was going to go skiing by being on a couch and talking about it, right? We didn't figure it out by only going to a computer. We did some research on a computer and Googled and asked around and looked for other four-wheel amputees to see if there was anybody out there. And when I started, there wasn't a lot of others out there. We had to just go for it. We had to just jump. We had to get to that hill and figure it out. And we were sitting on the ski bench, and my ski instructor, I've been telling people his feet were size 11, and I just saw him last weekend, and he told me, Tracy, my feet are size 12. And it's so funny. I've been lying all this time. I didn't mean to be, but it turns out his feet are size 12. And so we were sitting on the ski bench, and he had his boots off, his ski boots off, and the ankle part is like open in the ski boot, and I'm sitting there with my legs off, and I'm thinking, well, that opening in his ski boot looks just like my stump, looks just like my thigh. So what we did is we put ski boots on my thighs backwards, right? I didn't have toes, and with skiing, and I didn't have knees, right? So there's no knees. So when you're skiing, you do like a duck squat position. You bend your knees and you lean forward. Well, by wearing the ski boots backwards, I could stick my bum backwards because the ski boots were angled just a little bit, and I could lean my shoulders forward. And when I got to ski at the chairlift, because I have no knees, the skis were perpendicular to the chairlift. They weren't like underneath the chairlift. So when we got to dismount the ski lift, the backs of my tips hit the mound of snow, and I got slingshotted forward, and I went right past the bunny hill and right past the medium difficulty hill, and I ended up on the top of this run called OMG. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine? Right, and it's just like life, right? Just like life. Oh my goodness. And we're all pleased with oh my goodness. You could just picture it. And so the top of the run, the only way down is down, right? You gotta just go for it. You gotta just jump. And I skied in the trees 12 times. Not just wiped out, right into the trees, full on, straight, full speed into the trees 12 times. But what do you think I did when I got to the bottom of that run?
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm laughing. You went up and did it all over again. I know.
Yes. You know, what worked for me was sailing. When I started sailing, because I don't sail with my legs on, I kept falling out of the boat. I just got back in the boat, and I just believed I was capable. And my sailing instructor just believed I was capable. You know, without legs, that's why I kept falling out of the boat. And all the other kids, they all got their white sail level 1. But I got back in the boat over and over. I went back the next summer, and I eventually grew up to be a World Cup sailor. I could kick your butt in a sailboat, right? And I'm assuming you have arms and legs. I have no idea if you have arms. I shouldn't make assumptions, right?
Oh my, see, okay, so hold on. You're a person that doesn't give up. You're a person that just keeps going for it. You're a person that, you know, lands in trees, falls off boats, you know what I mean? You do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, why do you do what you got to do?
Well, so with sailing, I love water. Even when I was falling out of the boat, I didn't care. I was happy to go swimming. So it wasn't awful, right? So part of why do you do what you do? Because sometimes those wipeouts, I was laughing my face off when I was in the trees, right? I was in soft snow. So the whole like imperfection idea of, oh my gosh, I'm going to wipe out, or oh my gosh, I'm going to fall out of the boat. What's the first thing going to happen? You're going to fall out of the boat and you're going to end up in the trees, and maybe it's funny, right? I didn't know it was funny until I got there, and it was funny. And so, you know, why do you do what you do? I mean, I just knew I loved water right from 4 years old. I just loved water, loved being in water. And because I could swim, I could learn to sail and fall out of a boat. And because I could sail, I could teach sailing. And because I could teach sailing, I got into teachers college. And because I got into teachers college, I ended up teaching in Mexico.
Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Uganda, Jamaica, Nepal, all around the world. And because I was in sailing, someone said, have you tried skiing? Right? And then because I was in sailing, someone said, do you want to join our tall ship adventure? And because I was on the tall ship with a bunch of able-bodied teenagers, my captain's wife went in labor. She was already pregnant. She was in labor on shore. And I was the only teenager on that boat that knew how to sail. And so he left me in charge of the tall ship and in charge of all those other 18, 19, we were 18 to 25. And I happened to be 18 years old at the time. And he left me in charge of the tall ship because I was the only sailor. And so because I could swim, I could fall out of a boat. And so you just don't know. And so why do you do what you do?
Right.
It doesn't even, if you go for it and you look at the signs and you don't let failure stop you, feeling uncertain is no excuse for inaction. Having failure does not mean you avoid failure. You go for it again. And the bonus is the journey. Right? I didn't end up at Rio 2016 Paralympics, which is the dream I thought I was going for. I failed. I did not go to Rio 2016, but what I did do was I supported Magnus Lidgedal, gold Olympian, in getting out of the parking lot where I found him washing boats to a Paralympic sports club, to an Olympic sailing center, not a Paralympic, an Olympic sailing center in Miami, the U.S. Olympic Sailing Center, and we together turned it into a Paralympic acknowledged sports club where sailors with disabilities from around the world all got supported by Magnus Lidgedal out of this U.S. Sailing Olympic Center. And every single person in Rio and in London were all somehow supported by Magnus Lidgedal, gold Olympian. And I was part of that journey. I was part of supporting Magnus in that journey. Without me, he wouldn't have been able, I probably influenced him, and I definitely did the grants and the applications and the paperwork and all the administration. And so my journey was bigger than me.
So what you're saying is every time you did one, it brought you to a next level of something different. You tried something else.
Different and bigger.
It keeps bringing you closer. If you didn't start that one thing, it would have never brought you to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So when you get that chance and do something, other avenues, other connections, other things open up into your world.
You don't know what you don't know, right? Okay. You just got to jump.
So then here's the thing then. Doing all this is great, but when did you realize that you need to be going out and speaking, being on stage, doing what you got to do, write your book? Because you weren't doing all this before. So what was that thing that the light bulb clicked, and then now you are unstoppable Tracy?
So in sailing and in skiing, right, I got a bronze medal in skiing eventually, and I got into World Cup regattas in sailing and the Paralympic trials and did well against able-bodied men. But I had a coach. I had a gold coach. I had a high-performance coach. And even when I was learning at provincials and local levels, and when I wasn't even doing racing, when I was just learning, I had a teacher and an instructor. So one day I figured out, how come in sport I have a coach, but in my life, in my business life, in my everyday life, in my love life, in my speaking life, why don't I have a coach? Why do I only do it for sailing and skiing? And so I didn't get to Rio, and I was in a bad funk, right? I was really attached to Rio, and I didn't even see, like, holy cow, you kept that sailing school alive and turned it not from disabled sailing Independence Afloat, I was a contributor to Disabled Sailing Ontario, that then became Able Sail Network across Canada. And in skiing, I went from an individual skier to being on the Canadian Association Disabled Skiing Board for Canada, right? Like everything I've done always turned bigger, and I didn't give myself, and I didn't see that. And I went, and in this funk, and then Facebook said, do this free Mega Speaker Day. And because I was supporting Magnus in turning Team Paradise, his individual club, right, he said, I'll support you if you support me. And we did a barter. And so I supported him with boats and maintenance and administration, and we did an exchange. And I worked for him in exchange for borrowed boat time and coaching time. And that's how we did the Paralympic Sports Club. And to raise funds for Magnus and the Team Paradise, I would speak for Team Paradise. And when I would do the speaking, they'd say, you should write a book. And and have you written a book? And I'm like, no. And I said, I'm not a writer, I'm a sailor. I'm not a writer, I'm a sailor. And then I didn't get into Rio, and I was in this funk. And then Facebook said, come to this free day. Are you interested to be a mega speaker? And it was JT Fox's day, and I went, and he just spoke to me, and he was tough. And I'm really lucky. I think that I've had, Magnus Lidgedal, Swedish, tough love kind of guy, and I had my German father, tough love kind of guy, and JT Fox is a tough love kind of guy, but he gets results, and he cares about his people, right? He's got a motto called family first. And I think a lot of people show up thinking that he's lovey-dovey, but he's not. He's tough love.
Right. And sometimes you need that.
Yeah. And so he just really spoke to my listening that day. And he said, write an ebook, not a hardcover book. He said, write a book, and you put your face on it, not some flame or mountain or bow and arrow. It's you or your brand, and you put your face on it, and you come up with the title in it, and let go of perfect. Don't spend 2 years figuring it out. Just put something up and get started and put it out there, and then hold the world accountable, because who's going to hold you accountable? So put it out there and put it up there. This is first draft of an idea, so it's not expected to be perfect. And I went home January 27th, and on February 1st, I put my face on a cover with canva.com, a free app for 30 days, and you put your face. I put my face in a picture, and I put a fake title on it, and I put by Unstoppable Tracy, because that's what Magnus called me, and that's what my kindergarten teacher called me, and that's what my ski instructor called me. And I wasn't Unstoppable Tracy, something that I would introduce myself as, but wherever I go, it's where it would go. If you're on Facebook and elementary school friends show up and say, they don't know who Tracy Schmitt is.
No.
But they're like, are you Unstoppable? Or my sailing friends, who's Tracy Schmitt? Oh, Unstoppable Tracy. Who's my skiing friend? Oh, you mean Unstoppable Tracy. So people don't know who Tracy Schmitt is, but a lot of people around the whole world know who Unstoppable Tracy is, especially after. So JT Fox tells me to do that, and I go all in. I decide if I'm investing in my entire life, my home, my car, my bed, my dresser, everything to be with Magnus Lidgedal, gold Olympian, how come I'm not doing that in my real life, in my everyday life, not just the sport part of my life?
You're not giving you that same attention that you gave everything else. You're not giving You're not giving Tracy that all in all. That all in is just giving it to other people.
Yep. So I went all in with JT, and I earned 5 times my income after going all in with JT Fox, and wow. I went from, doing fundraising, not for profit, living out of my car, to be an incredible World Cup sailor. And that's what it took to be all in, was living out of my car. But, how do I support, once I realized, how do I make a difference for others if I'm not feeding and housing me? Right?
Okay, right.
I can make a bigger difference. And the bigger success I am, the bigger difference, the more evangelistic I can be. Not evangelistic, but more like a philanthropist is the word I'm looking for. Like
there you go.
The more generous I can be.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with evangelistic. I didn't mean to discount that, but I just mean, making a difference for others, whether it's God, whether it's funds, whether it's food, whether it's just planting the seed of possibility that you can do it. Because if I can do it, no arms, no legs, grew up in Ontario housing. And now, 7 months after JT Fox, I went from no money stages to being on stage with Jane Fonda. Not at JT's event, before JT's event, getting a gig in Russia for $10,000.
Wow.
Get all expenses, my flights, my hotel, my food. The $10,000 was my fee, not including my expenses. In Russia, 10 months later, not even. February 1st, Russia was October 9th. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Okay.
No excuses.
So then here it is. Before we're going to take a quick break, but I want you to think about this before you tell my listeners. You've been around the world. I'm looking at your website. I see, like Sharp. I'm seeing, Huffington Post. I see Oprah. You know what I mean?
Oprah magazine. Yep.
Yeah, I see Oprah magazine, and these are big things. But when we come back from break, I want you to tell the listeners the one thing, the one person, or when you went out and spoke that really told you that yes, this is what you were meant to do. Did one person come and talk to you after a speaking event? Did you see somebody on the street? Did you meet somebody? Did you get an email? I want to know, what was that one thing that said, Tracy, this is what I was meant to do? We'll be right back.
Hey, it's okay if you're driving or too busy to take notes. Charles has your parachute packed with all the info you need to jump into success. Check out the links section for all the tools you need to land safe. Now, let's keep falling with Charles and his special guest.
Introducing Promo Caribbean, the Caribbean's #1 mobile app. The only app you'll need to stay current on local and regional news, jobs, business listings, parties, attractions, travel, and much more. Whether you're in the Caribbean, Canada, the US, the UK, or anywhere in the world, this revolutionary app allows you to connect, engage, and support your Caribbean community through your mobile device. Reach the whole Caribbean community from the palm of your hands. Download the Promo Caribbean app now for free at the App Store and Google Play.
All right, and we are back with my special guest, and I want her to do her intro. This is
Unstoppable Tracy.
I don't know why I love that so much. It just makes me feel good just to hear how you say it. The thing about it, it's in your gut, and that's what I love. Like, I see people on stage all the time, like when we're doing these things, and you can tell when it's in your gut that you really enjoy and you love what you're doing.
Yes.
And before we went to break, I wanted to know, what was that time that you realized that, yes, this was what I was meant to do? Somebody came to talk to, an email. What was it?
And I was searching. I'm like, who do I talk about? Right? Magnus was my ski person, and JT Fox was definitely my business person that turned me into a profitable speaker. But there was, I also did a rec diploma before. There was a time when I didn't think I was smart enough to do an MBA, which I did go on to do an MBA. And I just won #1 global woman transformational leader in the John Maxwell world. And that's out of 160 countries. And so, definitely capable in business. And I say that not to brag, but to say, we have these stories in our head. And so I started doing recreation, and I love recreation. And actually, I'm glad I did my diploma and degree in recreation, because a lot of what I do in my business world is rooted in recreation. But my first placement, in order to inspire Regent Park, which is a tough neighborhood in Toronto, to get those kids to want to come to our advanced leadership after school program instead of drinking, drugs, smoking, rapping, doing whatever, like hanging out at the convenience store. We wanted folks to come be productive and do leadership with us, and maybe one day they'd work for the city offering parks and rec to other kids or adults or seniors, because there's so much possibility possibly there. And so we needed to go speak to that community. And this Alf Grigg knew a bit of my story, and he knew that I was going to be going to Nepal to climb the Himalayas and bring school supplies to a bunch of kids in the mountains. So he knew my early journey at that time, and he knew I could sail and ski. And I remember getting on the stage in front of this school, and I remember I was standing sort of at the front of the stage, and it was like theater in the round, where the stairs were, the first person in the audience is eye level with you, and then everybody elevates up and around you, higher and higher. And I remember just backing up and not being present during the conversation, and then my back just hit the wall behind me. So I didn't stay front and center, and I didn't move around. I just backed up to that back wall, and I thought that I'd done a terrible job, and by today's standards, that performance wouldn't have got me in Oprah magazine or on Jane Fonda's shared stage by any means. But I convinced a whole lot of kids to come out. And what Alf Grigg was his name. He was my placement facilitator and a magical man. And now, over 20 years later, I've got a conference with him coming up in 2019. And I've never shared the stage with him again since that day, which is really neat, 18 till now. But now, all these years later, we're both going to be at a conference together, 2019. And Alf Grigg, and instead of telling me all the things he did wrong as my placement coordinator, he just asked me. He's like, so how did that go? And he let me vent, and he's like, okay, tell me what you did well. Right? And I really had to think and search and went silent, and he wouldn't let me off the hook until I figured it out. And he said, and then what's one thing that you learned as a result of this day that you know you're going to do next time? Right? And he let me come up with those answers. He didn't point fingers. He didn't give me constructive feedback. He just coached me through what I did do well and what I could self-reflect on doing better. And Alf Grigg was the one that built up my ego to say, look at the turnout, look at our sign up. He was extremely positive, and then it just kept coming. Right, every time I would share a story in response to a question, it wasn't even intentional, which is like, what was it like teaching grade 1? And then I talk about all these kids that I held the pumpkin under my arm to walk over to the pumpkin table like a paper cutout. And then when I got to the pumpkin table, I asked one of the kids as a grade 1 teacher, and I asked one of the kids to hold the pumpkin and the paper that's had a picture of the pumpkin. And then I used the scissors and I used my left stump on one loop of the finger, and I used my one finger, because that's all I have on the right side is one finger. And so I'm scissor actioning with my left stump and my right finger. Whereas you guys, assuming again that you have 10 fingers, you could stick 2 of your fingers in from your same hand and just scissor cut. So these kids, and you could use your other hand to hold the paper. Well, these kids, when I relinquished them to go cut out their pumpkins after doing the demo, they all put the paper under their left arm, and they could have held it with their hand. They all walked over to the table. They all partnered up. And as a kindergarten teacher, you don't leave kids to pair up themselves. You facilitate that because you'll spend 20 minutes with them fighting over who's pairing with who, right? So, but I didn't facilitate it. And they all seamlessly paired up with each other, and one held the paper, and they used 2 hands to work the scissors. They didn't use one hand. They used one hand on the bottom and the other hand on the top. And it really taught me like what a role model you don't intend to be, right? And that there's more than one way to do things. And just because they're not doing it the way they're supposed to do it, right? They were cutting pumpkins, and they were being a team, and they were being supportive, and they're going to learn the one-handed scissor trick. But now they've learned here's another way, and that there are other ways to do things in life. And so it was a bonus. And so it just, that teacher said, you really gotta, and I shared that answer to a room full of teachers. And I wasn't speaking. I just happened to be on the stage introducing somebody, and they're like, you gotta speak. And I realized with Magnus in my sailing journey, you know, you're like, who turned me into a speaker? It wasn't really who turned me into a speaker. JT Fox and Magnus and Alf Grigg and that teacher that day, and Catherine Smart that believed in me in sailing when I was falling out of the boat instead of thinking sailing's not for me. She believed I was capable. Right. Ian, my ski instructor, believed, you know, failure isn't an option. We just keep going until we get it, you know, and that which was great. But it was always about unstoppable you. You know, you say unstoppable Tracy so happily, but the reason I say it so excitedly is because I'm waiting, because normally what I say is unstoppable Tracy, unstoppable you. And I'm unstoppable Tracy because of unstoppable you, Charles, because of shows like Jump and the listeners for listening in. I'm Unstoppable Tracy because of Unstoppable You listeners. And I can do it, you can do it. It's not about Unstoppable Tracy, which was the first name of my book in draft. What my book ended up being was Unstoppable You. And it's my stories, but they each end with coaching questions like what Alf did with me and what JT Fox did with me. And it's here's the story. So what are you doing? What's working for you? What's not? So what are you going to go ahead with your next step to drive action and results, and exponential fast results,
Right.
not 30 years to get here.
But do
results.
it now. Do it now. Do
Jump.
it now. Okay,
Yeah.
so here it is. My listeners know that they're like, okay, when's he going to ask the question? When's he going to ask the question? Because this is like my lead off question before we get out of here.
Oh,
So, all right. So they're wondering, and I'm excited to hear your answer to this. I'm asking all my guests at the very end, before you leave this earth, what is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be?
oh, there's a great top question for folks. And so another part of when it stopped being Unstoppable Tracy and it started to become Unstoppable You, and that every time it gets bigger, like what's something new, and always driving forward, right? Like this year was getting my advanced scuba diving. What's next year going to hold for me? And so 1 year was what's bigger than Unstoppable You? And for me, it was an unstoppable world. And there's no reason, because there's reason. What's reasonable, right? Big red X through that. So there's no reason why we can't have world peace in 2035. And so I am partnered with this gentleman who has this website, and he's out of Belgium. I was just in Belgium with him, and we talk on Skype and on phone and on WhatsApp, and we are about world peace 2035.
Okay.
And there's a Facebook group. There's over 40,000 clicks on World Peace 2035. I wish there was 40,000 clicks on Unstoppable Tracy, Unstoppable You. I think I have about 3,000 on my Facebook fan page, because it's Unstoppable Tracy, Unstoppable You that's going to help us drive World Peace 2035. No excuses,
Okay.
There's
That's it.
yeah.
Just get out there and get it done. We all have that, our inner peace in us, and we just have to show it to each person.
Yes, one at a time.
Right.
World Peace
Right.
2035.
Well, listen, Tracy, this has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on my show. And I hope that we stay in contact and see you do more things, bigger things. And, this is fun. And I want everybody to go to make sure, where can they see what you're doing? Give them a website that they can contact you.
Unstoppable Tracy. And I like to joke, I don't have my legs, and I don't have my hands, and I don't have an E in Tracy. It's Tracy. No extra parts with me. No arms, no legs, no E. Unstoppable Tracy. And that's everything. That's my website. That's my Facebook. That's my Instagram. That's my Twitter. That's my Google+. That's my YouTube. That's my Pinterest. That's my Tumblr. Like, that's my everything. Unstoppable Tracy, whatever your favorite method is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give this lovely lady a big round of applause for being on Jump. We thank you so much. This has been an honor and a pleasure.
Oh my gosh,
Tracy,
Charles.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles. I love it.
All right. And now remember, Jump listeners, if you want to hear what we're going to talk about, make sure you go over and get the bonus round, because Tracy and myself are going to be going there just now. You listening to Jump, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. If you liked the show or have a comment, we would love to hear from you. Join our mailing list, and as always, check out our special deals links below. I hope this has inspired you to look at your life and jump. See you next week.
Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer. Amazon is offering sign-on bonuses up to $1,000, plus get up to $20 an hour for select roles. The best part? We're hiring near you. So start now to take home something greater. New, higher wages with a sign-on bonus, a range of real benefits, and career growth opportunities in a top-rated workplace. So earn more and see how great pay and sign-on bonuses can lead to a greater life for you. Go to amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Hey, hope you had a great time listening to the show. If you think I did a great job, please buy me a coffee. I still got a lot of work to do. We would love to hear from you, your feedback, so please click the link and leave us a review. You can help us grow by following us on all social media platforms and sharing this link. Once again, it's time for you to jump. Success is waiting.